Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumi, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the co-founders of BODYBAR Pilates, Kamille and Matt McCollum. Hey, guys, how are you?
Great. How are you?
Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yes, absolutely. We're really excited, and I'm looking forward to the next 45 minutes or so, just diving into our story and who BODYBAR is.
Can't wait to get into the story here. So, Kamille and Matt, okay. Guys, I think we should really start about the origin of BODYBAR. And you guys really have a unique angle on how you all got involved in the business. So take it away.
Yeah, we found BODYBAR. It's actually a unique story. BODYBAR started in Dallas, Texas, and we used to live in Dallas. We had a good friend that was working for BODYBAR Pilates in Dallas, and actually it was BODYBAR Studios at the time. And it's Reformer Pilates, and this is really at the beginning of the big Reformer Pilates boutique fitness push. So we had just moved from Dallas to Fort Worth, but obviously kept ties with our friends back there. One of our friends said, Kamille, you have to come try one of these classes. You're going to love it. And I was training for a marathon at the time, so really nothing scared me. I was invincible. I was in my 20s, So I go and take this class, and it blew my mind. It was so amazing, just a full body workout, but my whole body was shaking, and I never had experienced a class like that. And so we had that first experience. About a year later, we ran into that same friend at a wedding, and she said, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing right now. We want to start our own business, but I want it to be in health and wellness. I'm not sure what we want it to be in, and we're researching different opportunities. And she said, well, BODYBAR wants to franchise. Fort Worth would be a great market. It's close to Dallas. You would be great as an instructor. You guys think about it. So we went back, and Matt looked at the numbers, and we, worked through everything together, and we decided, okay, let's open a BODYBAR Pilates in Fort Worth, Texas. So we go through that journey of opening, and during the process, our friend who was the president of the company at the time ends up leaving. We start working towards opening our studio. We get open, and it was very successful for anyone who walked in through the doors, but we could not get enough people in the doors at the beginning, and we didn't really have a whole lot of marketing support. And so we tried all kinds of different grassroots things. We tried local marketing companies, and just nothing was working. We knew once people walked through that door, they loved it. They loved the community. They loved the workout. They loved, what we had built. But we had to get more people in those doors. And at the time when we signed our franchise agreement, we had a 2-week-old, a 1-year-old, a 11-year-old. So wow. We were in a busy time of life already, but then you own this business, and it was just like we were all in it together. Sometimes our kids were up here with us on Saturdays and stuff like that. We finally found a digital marketing company that was able to push ads, just through Facebook and Instagram, but they we had 100 leads within 6 days, and we could not even keep up. So once we started figuring out the marketing side, we started figuring out the sales side, we were ready to open our second location. We were busting at the seams. So we went to the original franchisor who at the time had not sold any other locations. And we said, we want to open a second location. Maybe we should just branch away. You guys do Dallas, we'll do Fort Worth. We'll just, do our own thing from here on out. And they said, we really want to partner with you guys. You guys have the energy. You have what it takes. You've learned how to really run this business. And we would love for you guys to partner with us to grow BODYBAR Pilates across the United States. Matt, why don't you talk a little bit about that year of just due diligence that we did?
Yeah, so we had that conversation, and, we really wanted to step back and as I think everybody should do, breathe on it and pray on it and talk through the pros and cons. And I had a little bit of exposure to another franchise brand as a master franchisee in a service industry. And so I'd seen what it's like to make a lot of the mistakes as a franchisor not
Right.
holding people accountable to brand standards, things along those lines that said, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. So we dove into the IBIS World Reports. We kind of looked at the Pilates market as a whole. And what we really realized quickly is that demand for great reformer Pilates was far outpacing supply. And even at that point in time, the number one competitor in the country was virtually sold out of territory in North America. So we saw this as an opportunity to be a second mover, but with a better mousetrap, a better workout, a better build out, a better focus on community building and what that means for long-term retention. And so we went to all of the franchising shows to build our network of partners so we could keep our costs down and really bootstrap this thing to see what we could accomplish. And so in July of 2019, we officially partnered with the original franchisor to start BODYBAR franchising, where we took on executive leadership roles and we started selling through an FSO to start. And that was all great until February 2020 when the pandemic hit. So
Yeah, we're perfect timing on all of the things we do.
Everything happens, something like that happens to all of us, whether it's a recession or unfortunately the pandemic has happened to so many of us that started franchising. I can't tell you the number of franchisors that we've talked to that like literally started franchising in 2019 or in 2020. And it's really uncanny, but you had to battle through it.
Yeah,
that's right.
I think the pro to starting like that, in my previous company, I was a president of a moving services startup. And we started coming out of the 2008 recession. And so what's good about it is you have low overhead and you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And every year it can be a growth number. And that's kind of what we've experienced.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we have to be able to have perseverance and withstand that crisis, whatever that might be. There's always one lurking around, right?
Exactly.
Around the corner. That's business for you. But I think you raised a great point about franchising in particular, that since I think of our audience as emerging franchisors and people looking to invest in a franchise, that franchising in itself is not easy. It is a challenge. And the original founder of BODYBAR found it as such. Like, it's not for everyone to be able to take on going from having a successful concept and then turning on a dime and suddenly you're in franchising and you have one job, and that's to make franchisees successful. And having, you need to have that that support to be able to support franchisees. And you guys understood that concept.
Absolutely. And, part of that year of us just kind of going to these different conferences, yes, we were building relationships with other people in the industry, but we were also we knew the opportunities that there are in franchising to really lift up your franchisees and support them. And we wanted to find the right vendors to do that, made mistakes, made partnerships with people that we then were like, okay, this is not the right one, and move to another one and pivot. And I think you have to be able to do that as a franchisor. We have best intentions, obviously, in everything we do. And if you make a mistake, it's okay, let's pivot, let's find the next thing, and let's move on and continue to work towards the goal of making our franchisees successful, spreading BODYBAR communities across the United States. And part of what BODYBAR stands for is just having a welcoming environment where people can move and be healthy, but always feel welcome. And the great thing about that is, as we've scaled, we've been able to keep that going in every location. I still love to go visit as many locations as I can. Obviously, I have friends and family that will visit these locations and give me feedback. And whenever we hear that there is a BODYBAR community, that someone visits a BODYBAR and they feel that same community vibe, they feel that same welcoming environment, it just makes me so proud that we were able to scale such a huge aspect of that with the brand.
Yeah, well, there's so many Pilates studios out there. How did you truly come up with your own way of differentiating yourself?
Yeah, we definitely still use your, Joseph Pilates principles in our workout, but we have really moved it to a very more contemporary style. We have a certain blocking system that we do. So we have our own certificate for all instructors that go through our training, which is very important for keeping the quality of the workout the same. If you don't have a certificate for your workout, people are going to teach whatever they want to teach. And so they have to go through our training, and they learn the BODYBAR method is what we call it. And I won't give you all the details on the podcast, but and then after that, we have continuing education. We have different resources and tools for instructors to make sure they always stay on what we call the BODYBAR method the whole time. And that has really, been impactful whenever we've opened new markets where there isn't a BODYBAR. Inevitably, someone's going to say, oh, I just moved from Alpharetta, Georgia, and I miss my BODYBAR. I'm so excited to have it. And so whether that's instructor or for customer acquisition, like all of those things just play into each other.
We actually got an email today from a college student who's about to graduate and has been attending a BODYBAR in South Carolina, and she's moving back to North Carolina, to Charlotte area, and just, imploring us to put a BODYBAR there, which little as you know, we have a franchise owner that's working on real estate right now. But that's the stories you love to hear, is people that their life has changed through the workout and through the community, and they want to bring it with them wherever they're going.
Exactly.
That's amazing. I think back to some of the defining moments in my own career where, people ask, like, what happened? What was there something that happened in your business where you look back so fondly on? Was it, awarding the 100th franchise or a certain revenue milestone? I think for me, it was the first time that I heard that one of my customers had moved. Yeah. And they were so excited that they found another franchise in another location where they relocated, and they looked specifically for our brand. And that to me was just, I felt like I was finally on the map.
Right.
Yeah. One of my favorite memories. Matt, you touched on earlier about when you guys started franchising, you did use an FSO. And I typically ask people how they find their first dozen or so franchisees. So were they existing customers or referrals, or was it the FSOs right out of the gate that got your first dozen?
Yeah, so I'm really more the numbers and spreadsheet nerd in this relationship. And so, when we were looking at how we're going to scale on a very, very tight budget, it was, leveraging these partnerships where we could keep overhead down. And so we found an FSO that we really liked, and they were really great to partner with in the get-go. They really helped us kind of build our materials and kind of put together our story and explain how, franchisees can expect to be supported. It's easy for us because we were the franchisee, and we wanted to make sure that we provided support above and beyond, right?
Right.
But we started with them, and they leveraged brokers a ton, and that was the play. And so we built that into our budgets. We're going to use the broker networks, the FSOs, which what that does is that just eats up all your franchise fee. So you've got to have bandwidth, until you're building that royalty income. And unlike a service industry, site selection is the biggest hurdle we have right now. We can't sign a franchise agreement and have somebody open in 90 days. It's taking anywhere from 12 to 14 months on average. As we start to see the real estate markets,
shift,
then hopefully we can drop that time down to 10 months. And so that's something we realized pretty quickly with the FSO is like, we're not going to be able to bridge that gap without bringing on additional capital, which isn't something we were very interested in doing. So we worked with the FSO. As we mentioned earlier, COVID happened. It shifted everything. So we were focused on giving virtual workouts while studios were closed during the time. We were focused on doing virtual meet the team events. And we still were able to sign 4 additional franchisees during the shutdown phase of the pandemic before we reverted back to in-person meet the teams. But it definitely slowed our growth, which in many ways was a good thing because it really helped us focus on support. That's something that's really important to Kamille and I, and we didn't have our support in order, So if we had grown as fast as we could have grown, we would not have caught that up, and it's paying huge dividends today. Our average unit volume is pacing to be 800,000 this year, and our average length of studios open beyond our legacy studios is less than 2 years. So the support is so important, and it's about putting the cart before the horse. If you go out there and sell a bunch, but you don't have the support, you're going to be in trouble, or you're going to be looking for additional capital. And we didn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, that's where so many franchisors go wrong. And it's also the reason why, whether they stop franchising or they just stall out at the 50 number.
Yeah.
And
100%.
For you all, you've already opened 50 plus. You're on your way to 110, right? If we include the ones in development.
Right. And selling more along every single month.
Yeah,
so it's exciting.
We've got big goals and big budgets for this year. We've really invested, and I know Kamille will get into this more, we've invested into the team to support and grow, to continue to drive everything. We set our company values a couple of years ago now, and one of the ones that resonates most with us is raising the bar, setting the standard. So that we don't want to just meet the bar that's out there. We want to set a new standard in support, in community, in the workout. And one of the great things that Kamille, she was talking about the workout earlier, like we built a workout that bridges a larger gap than most. You have reformer Pilates that's really focused on more athletic individuals, and it's hard for people that don't have some athletic base to perform. You have reformer Pilates that's really more for the classical people, and people that want to do that's great, but they're not going to grow a lot. We bridge a gap where we can serve both of those audiences, and we can have both of those groups in a class at the same time. And based on the cueing and the workout methodology, they can all get something out of it. And so it really is a franchisor and a franchisee looking at us, that broadens your customer base. And that's a significant component to what we're offering.
How do you all overcome the challenges with trying to make sure that the studios are run consistently? Because I can see there's a lot of, I don't want to say wiggle room, but there is the possibility that studios can be run quite differently.
Absolutely. So a lot of it is the support and the touch bases that we have, whether it's with the studio owner or if the owners prefer to have managers be more, involved with running their day-to-day. We have our education department has monthly calls with our fitness managers that every studio should have a fitness manager. If they don't have a fitness manager, then the owner is the fitness manager. And they're the ones doing quality checks. They're recruiting new instructors. They're help coordinating the trainings. They're making sure everyone is teaching the way that they're supposed to be teaching. And then on the other end, you have your studio manager support, or if the owner wants to be their own studio manager, and it's giving them those sometimes weekly, sometimes bi-weekly or monthly calls, depending on the cadence that studio support needs, so that we can make sure that they are also getting that community feel at that front end of the house, of the sales process, of the community building. We have a boutique that's attached to our studio, so making sure our retail is looking up to par. We also grew our team with someone that specifies in retail merchandising, so making sure that what is being sold in our locations is across the board, all on brand, and it looks good and it's making money for those franchisees. So making sure it's profitable. Matt kind of alluded to adding to the team. We continue to try to innovate of what positions are going to elevate the brand even more. So bringing on studio support, that's going to be maybe higher level. Like, how can we raise the bar of our studio managers? We can't control who franchisees hire and don't hire, but we can support who they do hire to make sure they're educated and have all the tools and resources that they need in order for that BODYBAR to be successful. Because as you know, as a franchisor, we are not successful unless our franchisees are successful. So making sure that we're constantly reevaluating and being innovative on our hires, our support, our tools, and our resources.
What would you say about in terms of your franchise owners, the profile? I'd love to hear if you've noticed a shift from how they've differed from the beginning to how they are now. Is the traits of that person a little different, or their risk assessment of getting into business different? Are you noticing any change?
I think that we, having gone through dozens and dozens and dozens of Meet the Teams now and meeting a lot of really amazing individuals, we've really kind of honed in what we're looking for and what we think we can identify and what's going to make a franchisee successful. And we are adding in some personality profiling this next year in our budget, so we can kind of start to match, top performers up. I was taught early on, if somebody has the capital and they have the desire, why turn them away from being a franchisee? I really employed that philosophy early on in my service industry days. But when you get into this brand, you start realizing the amount of work it takes to really grow the brand, and understanding that each franchisee represents proposed value for the brand. And if you are pulling away from the support for the whole to manage the few that just won't do the work, that actually deteriorates the value of the brand.
Sure.
So we've gotten in a position where we are more selective. We're not going to sell a BODYBAR to anybody just because they have a big bank account. We have seen that the people that are most successful they love Pilates and they love people. They're passionate about their business. They're invested in it day to day. And that's the ones that are just driving crazy numbers. That's one of my biggest stories of, man, I'm really worried about this one, to the biggest success story that we can share.
Right.
But I think for us, it's people that have grit, which I think everybody knows in entrepreneurship, you've got to have grit. Mm-hmm. It's people that can follow a plan. I can't tell you how many times I meet with people that Meet the Team and they're like, You mean you sold a franchise and they don't do what you tell them they should do? I'm like, yeah, I don't know why, but there's people that they either can't, don't want to, life gets involved. I mean, so that's the biggest thing. When you buy into a franchise brand, you're buying into a proven business model. And we've got proof. It's in the pudding, you know? I mean, so if you'll just follow the steps our team gives you, you're going to be successful. The quality of your success is based off of, you know, the location you pick and the work that you're willing to put in and the team members that you hire.
Yeah. And I mean, with franchisees, they're entrepreneurs, which is great. Like, that's a wonderful thing. But being part of a franchise system is part of knowing that, like, doing what our support team has told you to do, because just because it's not like a parent just saying, just do it because I said to do it. Yeah. It's really about, hey, we have tried and tested these different things, and this is what's going to make you the most successful. And so, you know, it's such a fun group when we get together with our conference. You know, I think our franchisees, I mentioned as we closed out our last conference, like, we have such a great group of franchisees that do care about people. And it's just making sure that we continue to find those individuals as we grow the brand, as people that, I think, you know, loving Pilates is great, but really loving people, in whether that means your staff or the actual clients you interact with, or hopefully both, you know. But that's really what makes our brand special, and is, I think, why we've been so successful so far.
What about the breakdown of franchise owners that are, it's manager owned versus them that are, you know, the owner operator?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say probably, what do you think? 40% or more manager run?
Yeah, I was going to say 60% or more owners involved. And when we say involved, it doesn't always mean that they're the ones instructing classes. They may just be like, they come into the studio every day, and they do have managers that might run the day to day, but they're there and they're visible and they're building relationships with the clients and with their staff. And then we have some that are instructors, and they enjoy being in there and being able to sell a membership and all of those things. So we definitely have a pretty diverse group. And then we have some that are pretty semi-absentee.
What's interesting about that, the ones that are semi-absentee, they recognize that, they say it to us all the time. I know it works. I just am not putting prioritizing the time to be in the studio. Yeah. And they recognize it. They know that it works. And if they would put that time forth, they know that they will get better results. But they have competing life interests, which we all understand.
Sure. All right. So of your top 10 franchisees, who are the most successful, the manager or the owner operator?
I would say
owner operator.
Yeah. 8 out of 10 are owner operator.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
What's your take on multi-unit franchise ownership? Is it something that you allow or
Love it.
entertain? Yeah.
Yeah, we really feel the model is to really, and this is something we were taught when we first bought our franchise, but is to really kind of encompass an area and own 3 locations, you know, where you can, you know, we leverage data a lot, and we're looking at, you know, what our mosaic profile of our membership type is, and we see where they're coming from geographically in our cities. And so when you start to build your studio up and you're past, you know, a point of utilization that you can't continue to support, you build your second location where you take some relief off of that first location, but start to build up the second one. And then you do it again a third time. And then if you've got the prowess and you're able to build the operational structure, you continue on from there to 5, 6, 7, 8. We haven't gotten there yet, but we have owners that have their sights set on that.
Yep. And you get to share staff, which is amazing. So a lot of times a Pilates instructor cannot be full-time at one location, but with our 2 Fort Worth locations, we have staff that are full-time instructors for us, and they teach at both locations, and it gives the customer variety, but it also gives them enough hours in the day to be able to make a living.
Nice. What's the investment range of opening one studio?
So it's been an interesting time because of COVID, how that range has kind of gone up and down. Supply chain got really wonky there for a while. This last year, in our 2024 FDD, our investment range was between 300 and 800,000, where the average is falling in right in that 550 range, and we're seeing it actually starting to trend down, which is a good thing.
Really,
as we see supplies kind of free up and the cost of goods not being as impactful. And we're just getting better at it. I think that's the biggest thing is we do this every opening. We get better at pre-sales. We get better at cost adjusting quicker. And part of that's the support that we're adding, the systems and processes that we're layering in. And just, again, I'd say the great team that we've built on the franchising side that just understands the value of having good, solid processes.
Wow. And what about the stores, or I should say the studios? How far apart are they generally?
So we have a minimum of so protected area is a minimum of a 2-mile radius or a 75,000 population, except for super urban markets like New York or Chicago or something like that. We have a little bit different structure there because 2 miles in Chicago could be 1 million people.
Right.
But we see them, the more that we open, and this has been a kind of a growing pain for us. We have studios opened by different owners that they're sharing customers, sharing instructor bases. And that's a tricky line to walk as a franchisor because you need to grow. We know that with more growth and more opportunity for candidates and for clients and for instructors and for staff to work, the better the brand grows, the more recognition you have, the lower your customer acquisition cost is, and the longer your retentions are going to ultimately be. But it also drives you to make sure that you're putting forth the best product and the best community so that you're retaining your clients versus them going an extra mile down the road to another BODYBAR.
Right. Okay. Matt, you did mention something earlier that I know a lot of emerging franchise founders, it might be foreign to them. And I'd love for you guys to talk about this a little bit more. And that was, you mentioned Mosaic. And we all know that what that is really, it's the psychodemographic software that you use, right, to assess territories, to making sure that they are profiled that looks like a typical studio that has been successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so would you talk a little bit about what the impact has had on your openings or the placement of locations?
Yeah. So we started out using it to determine, as we do our mapping, where we had the most viable territories. And then we'll stack rank them based on where we have the strongest density of population and the best Mosaic overlap. Now, the thing about Mosaic profiling in an early maturing brand is it's going to change.
Right.
So you don't want to be in this feedback loop where you're just creating the same customer. You want to make sure that you're open and available to all people that want to be a client.
And Pilates has changed over the last few years too.
100%. Yeah. A lot of different external factors that drive that. But what we do from a development standpoint is we take that profiling and we rerun it quarterly. We want to see how each location's profile looks and how the overall system looks. And eventually, as we get larger, we'll be able to have West Coast, East Coast, Midwest, South, different profiles based off of geography. And so then what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we want to find a minimum of X number of mosaics in this trade market to say this territory is a viable one that we think can scale quickly following our model. And then our franchisees can take that and let that inform their marketing, the copy that they write, the images that they use, where they go in the community to find their members. But we're also, again, very clear with them, hey, this is a way to attract 50% of your membership base. The other 50% is going to come from everywhere else. So don't turn anybody off or turn anybody away. Let's be make sure that we're advertising and marketing to all people everywhere.
Sure. Well, Kamille, how has the customer changed in the last few years? You mentioned that.
So Pilates has been trending on TikTok, Instagram, probably for the last couple of years. And we've seen a huge push in two different demographics. One is your 16 to 21-year-old that is really interested in being in shape and they're interested in doing reformer Pilates. And then we've also seen a huge push with athletes, men and women. So seeing, I don't know if you remember last Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs all did a class on reformer Pilates. And then the Baltimore Ravens, they posted some stuff that they do that. And that's been known. And if you're in the industry, you've known that these athletes do it. But now it's becoming more and more where the everyday person sees it. And I think the only thing is, I just don't want people to think you have to be a complete athlete, like an NFL player, to be able to do reformer Pilates. As Matt spoke to earlier, we have all kinds of classes for we believe everybody can do Pilates, but it is great because it just opens up that door and that window to people that, hey, it's not just your, typical upper class person that is doing Pilates. It is across the board, a lot of different demographics.
So it sounds like obviously the trend is changing dramatically. It's making it a much wider net you can cast. Because your industry is so competitive, are there any strategies that you'd be willing to share that you've employed that keeps you ahead of the industry?
I think a huge part is just our team constantly educating ourselves on what the trends in the wellness community are, making sure, big trending words right now is accountability, innovation, those kind of words, and making sure that as we are rolling out our marketing calendar, as we're doing these different things, how can we talk to our clients in words that they're already thinking about? So right before this, I was talking to our COO about how, we need to do a better job of really pushing referrals, and not like the cheesy way of give me a phone number and an email of one of your friends. It's more of who do you want to come work out with you? It's way more fun. We always, we play off the bar theme. And so it's more fun to go to the bar with a friend and have your favorite happy hour with your friend. So is there somebody else? We'll give you a free credit if you'll come and bring your friend to class, and making it more of those conversations that you have with people so that you are making that opening, inviting community. And then a huge portion of what's trending now that we really try to incorporate in our marketing calendar and our sales processes, it's not all about losing weight. It's not all about your normal kind of conversation around working out. It's more about health and wellness and quality of life. So making sure that our content and then our instructors, as they're speaking, that is those words that they're using, not you'll be so skinny for, your wedding or whatever it may be.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too. Pilates near me has been one of the top search Google terms for the last 3 or 4 years, and many DMAs. And so people are looking for it, but they're not looking for just any Pilates. They're looking for the right fit, the right community for them. When you go and you look for a new gym, you want to go to the place that you feel like this is my place. I want to be here. And so it's really important that from our sales associates to our instructors, to our studio managers, to our existing clients, they understand people are coming here looking for this. How do we help them embrace it? And I can't tell you how many times we hear stories about, man, I went in, I didn't know anybody. And then April over here was helping me. And Shannon was saying, hey, watch me. I'll show you what to do. And they're just building their own community. And that's what's exciting, because the members at our studios are perpetuating the membership.
Absolutely.
And that's the gold, really. I mean, we've heard it. We say it all the time that, members clients will cancel memberships, but they won't cancel relationships. And so we build that relationship, bake it into the workout, into the community, and it leads to long-term benefits for everybody.
Yeah. During our instructor training, we even tell the instructors, hey, when you have new people in the class, set them next to one of your OGs, set them next to someone that's been coming for a while, and introduce them to each other. That member is going to feel so much ownership of I'm going to help this person know what the right springs are, and I'm going to make sure this person is doing the right thing. And then that builds friendships. I mean, I can tell you from being an instructor, from being in the studios for so many years, there's relationships with members that I have that I would never have had, but then also friendships that I know they've literally texted me, this is all because of BODYBAR. And that, and that's something that I know it can sound like a lot of boutique fitness really talks about community, but when you entrench it in everything that we're pushing out, I do think that makes a difference in the way that every studio opens.
Well, since your instructors and your franchise owners, they're everything, right? They're being on the front line. Our success is directly tied to how great of a job they do and being ingrained in your culture. Is there an example of anybody you want to shout out that has made a difference, or maybe they surprised you, they exceeded your expectations?
I mean, I'd talk about
Sarah. Yeah, that's who I was.
Right away, Sarah, huh?
Sarah, we both knew.
Yeah. So Sarah Schaub is our owner in downtown Tampa, and she's working on her second location now, I think in Riverview. When she started the process, she had all the energy in the world. She loves Pilates. She loves people. I believe she has a master's in HR.
Yeah, I was going to say her occupation in the past was HR, but she had gotten her Pilates certification at one point.
And so during the early days, I really held everybody's hands through site selection, construction, financing, all those things. And, she was using our construction management company that we referred for people to use, which we added that because when we opened ours, we didn't have that. And we ended up getting ripped off in remodel tax that we didn't know about. And she was following the model. She was moving quickly. And then before they could respond on a Monday, she signed a contract with the general contractor on a Sunday, who was not one that our construction management company referred. They were the low bid. but it was a residential contractor, and it went wonky from there. So a build out for a Body Bar should take 10 to 11 weeks at most. I think hers took about 35. So she's paying dead rent. She's frustrated, as you would imagine. Her staff is frustrated because they've been doing a 12-week pre-sale that turned into a 35-week pre-sale.
Ouch.
You've got members wondering if you're going to open. And Sarah was positive the whole time. She's like, we're going to figure this out. We had to do a lot of help and get her where she could get. But when she opened, dude, I mean, she lit that market on fire. She is ingrained in that community.
Well, and she kept that momentum going during that long pre-sales because she was out in her community constantly doing mat classes, having her instructors do mat classes, just meeting people, that other businesses, but then just the people that lived around her studio. And I think that helped keep her energy going through those hard times too. And now
now she referred in who's going to be our newest franchisee, our newest franchisee in Dayton, Ohio. So she's a cheerleader for the brand. She loves it. She gets it. And she's just crushing it. I mean, she's repaid her debt, and she's just
ready for location number 2.
Yeah. She's only been open for 2 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you guys know that we were in Tampa, by the way?
I didn't know.
Oh.
Yes.
You need to go see Sarah.
We're in Tampa. My wife does Pilates in South Tampa, so I'm curious to know. I'll find out where she goes, but that's crazy. That's great.
We've got a South Tampa territory coming relatively soon. I was working with the owner on that yesterday.
Nice.
But yeah, y'all need to go check out Sarah. She's a rock star.
She's
that's awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the big surprise in franchising. What's been one of your biggest surprises since you've been franchising now for 5 years?
Real estate's been, I mean,
that's the hardest.
The challenge that you are finding real estate, and there's different ways you can go about it that are more capital intensive, but site selection's been really, really a challenge. We've done some things in the last 5 months that we're starting to see that evolve, but that's been a big one.
How big is the average size studio?
2,300 square feet.
Oh, that's a pretty good size.
Yeah, we really do prioritize a boutique. We know that the bigger your boutique is, one, the more community building you can do. You can have sip and sees, you can move more retail, you can carry more retail. But also, in a traditional Pilates studio where it's a smaller footprint, you're pushing people out the door after class to get the next people in.
Right.
So on a cold, snowy day in Chicago or 120 day in Texas, there's no time for community building. And so we see people that will hang out in the lobby for 30, 40 minutes after class, just chit-chatting,
Part of that year that we took doing our business plan, I was at the same time working with an architecture and design company to create what our new studios look like. And part of that boutique area, yes, is for shopping. Yes, it's for pop-ups and community building, but it's also for that sales process to really be able to happen. So in a lot of traditional Pilates studios, there's no wall between the studio and the front desk. And so there's music, there's instructors, there's noise. And so it's hard for a manager or sales associate to close a membership sale in person or over the phone. And so this way, during the working hours, during classes going on, we can shut those doors and they can have a quiet environment to finish out that sales process and get people booked into class. So it is a little bit larger, but we found it to be very successful. We also, instead of the average Pilates studio has 12 reformers and we have 14 reformers. Part of that year of doing our due diligence, we took classes all over the United States, and we went to one, these mom and pops that had 18 reformers in the room. And I was like, as an instructor, there is no way you can make sure everyone is on form with the right form and doing all the things that you need them to do. But we felt like adding those 2 additional reformers, you can still check form, you could still get everybody into the right position, but it just gives you 2 more people that can get into your class. You don't have those wait lists, or if they do late cancel, no show, you get those fees for that.
So that's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, and I'll add this too. We measure, revenue per square foot utilized, and we tend to see a 10x return on revenue generated versus rent per square foot. And so obviously there's diminishing returns the larger you get, but with the 14 reformers, you're increasing revenue capacity by 17%. You're making customers happier once you hit those 400, 500 member thresholds, because they can still get into the peak times of class a little bit more easily. So yeah, I mean, our build out's a little bit bigger than the norm, but it pays for itself many times over.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to kind of legacy here and vision. So this is a legacy business. How big is big, and what's the plan here, long-term vision?
You just growing on. You go ahead. I always kind of overspeak and say I just want to open like thousands of body bars across the United States.
I mean, I think for us, we want to, like we said, it's one of our values is to raise the bar and set the standard. We've got some members on our team that come from other boutique fitness brands that grew quickly and grew very large in multiple countries. And so we have those visions as well. We want to make sure that we are providing support to our franchise system and to our client base so that they can meet their goals, whether it be their fitness goals, their community goals, their relationship goals, or their retirement goals.
Right.
And so I think as long as Kamille and I are positioned to lead the group that we're building, and I just can't tell you, our team that we have here at BODYBAR Franchising is phenomenal. They're world class, and we're going to continue to add to that. We've got additional hires planned throughout the course of 2025 and 2026. And so our plan is to keep building great communities and building a great brand. Eventually internationally, yeah, we'll be looking to move into different parts of the country. One of the things that Kamille and I are focused on right now is developing the team so that we can start focusing more strategically on where we go next. Is it Kamille wants to focus on how do we drive more revenue? What are things that we can do in studio to make our owners more profitable? I want to start looking at international expansion or possibly additional brand acquisition that we can leverage. But, as a franchisor that's emerging, you've got to have all the right people on the team and doing the jobs they need to be doing with support before you can really step out and start focusing on those types of things.
Exactly. We started with 3 of us all doing this together. And so now I think we're at
about 20.
Yeah, about 20 head count. And so we have to continue to add to our team because I'm a big believer in if we want really good customer service all the way down to the studio level, we have to provide that from the franchisor level and provide that to our franchisees. So as we grow, adding the staff so that they can continue to lead that charge while we're looking at, okay, now we're ready for those bigger picture items.
Wow. I am not surprised by the success you guys have had. I am super impressed with what you guys have done so far. And I see no reason why this thing isn't just going to keep going and blowing up.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited.
It's exciting. It's a lot of hard work, but I mean, it's if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life, right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
Look, both of you are still smiling after, 50 something franchises.
Well,
it's not easy.
This too, we're a married couple. We were married before this. We'll be married after this. We're raising 3 beautiful daughters, and life is hard. There's different challenges for everybody out there, whether you're a 9-to-5 employee or you're building a business together. But at the end of the day, you surround yourself with people that you want to be in life with. And,
right.
And I think that's what we do. And we try to make sure that we are supporting each other. And I tried my very best not to talk over my wife.
Smart man. So do you guys ever unplug and not talk about BODYBAR when you get home?
We try to. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. I think the best thing for us is when we do go on family vacations where we're active. So like going skiing or girls snowboard and you're too exhausted to talk about anything at the end of the day of being on the mountain all day. So those are really special times that we do try to cherish. And then we try to do things separate from each other because when you work together, you parent together, you're with each other all the time. He's got his golf trips and I've got my Europe trips. And, we got to have that space where we can just kind of disconnect and breathe a little bit and then come back and be better together.
That's awesome. All right. Well, guys, if someone was interested in learning more about BODYBAR, where would they learn about the franchise opportunity?
So they go to bodybarpilates.com and search about being a franchisee. They can also email franchising@bodybarpilates.com and somebody on our development team will help them out. They can email me at matt@bodybarpilates.com and I'll be happy to help them out as well, or at least get them steered in the right direction. And one thing that I wanted to add, and I know we were going to talk about this, but one of the things that's so unique about boutique fitness and with BODYBAR, our model specifically that I love, and this is my elevator pitch, if you will. But, with BODYBAR franchising, the average cost to open, call it $600,000. If you're going to leverage SBA financing, you're going to put 20% of equity into that project, which is $120,000. Our average tenant improvement allowance is about $44 a foot on 2,300 square feet. call it $88,000. And then we do a pre-sale for 12 weeks leading up to when you open. So you're opening with members. Many of our franchise owners are cash flowing from the day they open. So you've recouped, 88 of your 120 additional capital outlaid, and now you've got membership and recurring revenue. And this business is very much fixed costs. So once you cross break even, 90% of every dollar is profit. So we know what those numbers are. We help drive our franchise owners to them. And that's why it gets so exciting once they cross that and they keep building and they can start opening location number 2 and location number 3 through their own cash flow. There's just not many franchises or business startups you can do where you can, at the end of the day, put out, 120 of your money, but get back, 85% of that within 60 days of opening your business and just be on the rocket ship to the moon from there.
Yeah. I was at an opening a couple of weeks ago, and the owner was there, and he's like, I've already hit my number of memberships to be cash flowing. So when can I sign up for my second location? And I was like, let's finish this week out, and then we'll move to that next step. But that's a really great experience for them.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I got one last question for you guys. So at the end of every podcast, I always do a thing called the franchise tip jar because the franchise community is so generous with sharing information. So I've got one for you. It's new. I got a new question for 2025. And that is this: if a close friend came to you about buying a franchise and being a franchisee, what piece of advice would you give them to ensure that they're making the right choice?
I would definitely make sure that they feel comfortable with the people that they are going to be in this partnership with. We always say it's like a marriage. For 10 years, you're tied to this. So call the other franchisees that are, validate with the other franchisees that have already signed on. Go meet them. Make sure you're meeting the leadership team all the way down to your support team, and making sure that you feel good about the support that they are going to give you, because unfortunately there are some stories out there of some franchisors that don't provide the support and, just take the money and run, basically. So really making sure you feel good about the people that you're going into business with. And the only way you can really know that is by talking to other owners to see what they really feel about the support that they've had. Yeah.
The other thing that I would add to that is, if you have a franchisor that is going to agree to massive changes to their agreement, run. You cannot run a growing brand, which your value is going to increase or decrease based off the value of every franchisee that's out there building. You cannot manage that if you have different versions of your agreement out there. So you want to find a franchisor that stands behind their agreement, that it's fair and equitable, and that they'll then say, we're going to use this agreement to make sure that you're successful, but that we can also protect from bad operators as well. So I've had friends that have said, well, they said they'll change this, this, and this for me. And I said, don't do it. Like, if they're going to change that for you, they're not going to be able to manage this system as it gets really, really big, or it's never going to get really big.
That's great advice. I haven't had anybody mention that yet. And that is absolutely true. I agree with that 100%. Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you continued success.
Thank you, Frank. Look forward to seeing you when we get down to Tampa soon.
That's right.
Please, let's do it.
We'll do it. All right.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.